Yeah, sure.
All right, we'll call together this regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Oneonta. It is July 1st. It's just about exactly 6 p.m. And we'll call the roll. We can discuss.
Mayor Drenick.
Here.
Councilmember Mosher Campoli.
Here.
Councilmember Walsh Russo.
Here.
Councilmember McHugh. Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Here.
Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart.
Here.
Councilmember Matheson.
Here.
All right, we'll wait a second and let our council member take her seat, and then we'll get up. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks. And as we have all of our council members here now, we'll open our discussion. If there are any council members that have anything that they'd like to bring forward for the public's information, this is a great time. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring forward? Yes, Don.
The friendly amendment, do I discuss that now or later on when?
That's a discussion item. It's been moved to discussion.
Thank you.
Sure. Is there anybody else who would like to bring anything forward at this time? No. Okay. Well, in that case, we'll move on to our petitioners, public hearings, and correspondence section of the agenda, and we'll start with the public hearing. There is a public hearing to receive comments on a proposed amendment to the City of Oneonta's municipal code, which would change how members are appointed to the city's Board of Ethics. This item is subject to referendum and was laid on the Common Council's desks on June 17th, 2025. And I wonder if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to speak at this moment on this subject. No. All right. In that case, we will close that public hearing and we'll move our way to our petitioners section. And again, at the risk of really repeating myself, you know at this point you'll tell us who you are, where you live, and we have a podium here. I appreciate if you would make your way up to that so we can all hear you. We'll mic you. We are recording this. It's not being posted in the moment, but it is going to be posted. So, and if you could take 3 minutes or less, that'd be wonderful. So is there anybody who would like to speak? Let me go with Brian first.
I'm Brian Shaughnessy, 6 North Belmont Circle. I'm going to speak about the agenda item on the council agenda, motion 13, overnight parking restrictions. The city is proposing to restrict vehicles from parking in downtown public lots once a month, year-round, for cleaning and maintenance. At the Quality of Life Committee meeting, Greg Matthias stated that these parking lots they would become tow-away zones on designated Tuesday nights between midnight and 5 a.m. The city offered insufficient justification for why it is necessary to shut down our parking lots in this manner. Why is this suddenly being proposed now? It seems that this is a reaction to the complaints regarding unsafe snow and icy conditions in the Dietz Street lot this past winter. The city's proposed blanket approach to shutting down parking lots overnight will not only fail to address the snow and ice conditions, but it will create new problems. To start, people will not be going quiet when the city starts towing cars out of these parking lots for no good reason. If the city is going to force everyone to vacate the parking lot, there needs to be clear justification reason for it. We need a citywide plan that accommodates snow emergencies. The proposed plan to shut down parking lots on Tuesday night is not the answer. The correct answer might be to shut down parking lots when it is necessary due to snow. As Greg said, he already has the authority to post temporary police orders, signs, and require everybody to vacate whenever necessary. I want to remind the council that starting in late August, when the college semester begins, there will be more cars downtown compared to last semester, all competing for a limited number of spaces. Taking a different parking lot offline every Tuesday night will add confusion and more stress to our already strained downtown parking situation, especially since the new parking lot at 47 Market Street is not even finished yet. It is worth noting that in the past, certain city-owned parking lots have not been regularly closed overnight. Contrary to what the quality of life meeting minutes say, I believe Westcott Lot and Wall Street Lot have never been the target of routine nightly closures. So again, why now? I further question the proposed time frame of midnight to 5 a.m. This will not only affect downtown residents, but also impact people who patronize bars and other nightlife establishments that remain open until 1 a.m. on weekdays. Regarding the concern about keeping these parking lots clean, I know several volunteers who have stepped up to help. I personally walk through the 27 Market Street lot on weekends to pick up litter when I know city staff are not working. Let's invest the time to create a plan that works better for everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Have we anybody else who'd like to speak?
I'd like to read a letter.
Maureen, you need to
I'm
let us
sorry?
know who you are.
Oh, no, this is a letter from Patrick Dewey on his behalf.
Okay, and Patrick is from where?
I'm writing as someone with cerebral palsy who uses a motorized wheelchair for mobility to advocate for an increased number of handicap parking spots by the entrance behind the Deet Street Lofts building. I am a resident of the Deet Street Lofts apartment building. There are at least 5 of us who use wheelchairs and walkers for our regular mobility. There are currently only 2 handicap parking spots. Myself and others have had to forego the use of the handicap parking spots at times because they were full, at times with vehicles lacking a handicap placard. I therefore advocate for an increase in the number of handicap parking spots. Another issue that I would like to bring to your attention in writing this week is the lack of snow and ice removal in the same parking lot as mentioned earlier. In a wheelchair, the snow and ice can cause travel to become bumpy or a wheelchair to get stuck. These are not only discomforts but can be safety hazards. For those on foot, ice in the parking lot can pose risks of trips and/or falls. Please consider these points when discussing the Deet Street parking lot and policies related to it. Thank you for your time in reading and considering the above.
Thank you, Maureen.
My name is Maureen Daly, 34 Deet Street. I'd like to address both of these issues. It's a private residence on a public lot. Not a great idea. It never was. It's the only one in the city. We need more handicap spaces. I don't care what the regulations are for the state for how many parking spaces we can have. We have now 4 cars with people with disabilities that need a place to park. One of them parks out in the back by the fence and gets out as best he can. 2 others park in the parking spots, and the other one, who knows where. It's getting ridiculous. I get that there's regulations. I get that you meet them. I get that it's fine. But it's not okay because we're a residence. We live there. We need a place to put the cars permanently, overnight. More of them. Another issue is the removal of the ice and snow. I happen to agree with Brian. I don't know why you're doing all the lots to clean. I think that Deet Street Lofts needs special consideration because it's a residential building. We all park in the row across the back of the building, near the building, and the ice builds up between them, between the cars. No, I don't want anyone to shovel. That's crazy. I do want someone to clean the lot more often. on snow emergencies because those are too big. Just in the meantime, the snow falls off our cars, we brush it off our cars, there's nowhere for it to go, it melts, it freezes, it stays there. It was really bad this winter. It's gotta go.
Thank you, Maureen.
Last two more things. I'm really happy to see that there's a handicapped accessible crosswalk going at Wall Street and Deep Street. Patrick's been trying to go to the library since he's been in the building. It's great. And I'm happy that we have a walkway along the building. People actually use it, get up and down the driveway without getting killed. And we do have a couple of balusters that need to be replaced because they've been knocked down.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Have you anybody else that'd like to speak?
I'm Andy Mason. I'm co-president of the Delaware Artsego Audubon Society. I live on Boylston Street in the 6th Ward. And I want to address the two motions on the agenda regarding firearms and ammunition in the city. I think both of these measures will benefit both humans and wildlife within the city and beyond. And so I do support them. And I want to thank the Environmental Board and the Parks and Recreation Commission and the members of this body for their support.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to council? Yes.
Hi, my name used to be John until I legally changed it to Andrew. Well, back to Andrew again. That's something on the first thing on my list, is that I legally changed my name about a week ago, thanks to Judge Burns agreeing to that. It was only due to a family and legal reason, so if you're all wondering what the full name is now, it's Andrew John Henry Gordon Hemmel IV. Yes, it's a long aid name, but it's worth it. It really is. The other one is, I was wondering what the status of the ADA committee is. It seems like that went out the window, and I'm just kind of wondering if we can by any chance reopen it again, and having members of the public as well as the city council to serving on there. I would say the ADA committee could help advocate, help come up with a resolution, and be a mediator for those who are disabled, whether it's mentally or physically or what have you. And I think that committee needs to be back orchestrated again. And I am proposing this to the city council. Can we please put a white line through Center Street to show people what side of the street they should be driving on? Because it seems like whenever I walk down Center Street to catch the bus across the street from St. James Church, it always seems like Center Street has been like, people are either supposed to drive on the left or the right, or they're not doing that. They're driving in the middle. And I'm just like, this isn't London. Know where you're supposed to be driving, for crying out loud. And I know the tourists don't care, and I'm just kind of wondering if that's something that the city council could consider for 2026 or later this summer or this fall. All right, that's all I wanted to let you know.
Carolyn?
Good evening. Carolyn Marks, 18 Ravine Park North. I have some concerns about on the consent agenda motion for the Common Council approves an ordinance modifying Chapter 194 of the City of Oneonta Municipal Code entitled Parks and Recreation. First of all, there were changes made to this particular code, and none of those discussions were ever held with the Parks and Recreation Commission. I've read through them. I've given these ordinance changes to the rest of the commissioners. I know Andy came. And there are some other concerns that I feel also need to be addressed, and I would like to be able to have that time to meet with the commissioners of the Park and Recreation Commission and discuss some other situations that I feel need to be addressed in the parks. So is there some way that we could meet with Parks and Recreation? KT, you're our liaison from Parks Rec to Common Council, but there are other issues that have been brought to my attention, and they're nothing new. They might be contemporary, but there are situations that I think need to be addressed, and there's some other concerns that I have with Parks and Recreation and the ordinance so far. But I do agree with Andy and the commissioners as well. We're on the same page with that, but there's other concerns with the parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Have we anybody else who would like to speak? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. And do we have any correspondence?
No.
No correspondence. So we'll move into our committee reports. And starting with our Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee. And Scott, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor. We met Monday at 5 o'clock on June 23rd. First item that we discussed was the noise ordinance. We did have both Adams from Casella come and talk, because Casella is also running the transfer station by contract with the county. This is into the petition for the noise ordinance, and why is it starting at like 5 o'clock versus a later time. In a matter of 2 minutes, we got a bunch of information thrown at us on why the time is the time. Some of it is from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. They regulates times that the transfer station can be open, and to get the haulers in there and to get them out by 3 o'clock. Also, the transfer station down here is used by other haulers that aren't just from the city and the town. There are other haulers in Otsego County, some are outside of Otsego County that also use that. Also, it was in the center city, it's to get the big trucks in and out so that they don't, with traffic and school being in session and stuff like that, they're trying to get in and get out before they disrupt everything. They also can't keep garbage in the truck overnight. So if they miss that 3 o'clock, then they got no place to go. So really, a lot of things are Otsego County has control over the transfer station. DEC has control over times and regulations, and it to start later would almost guarantee that these haulers wouldn't be able to get into MOSA by 3, or not MOSA anymore, but into the transfer station to get their trucks offloaded. So I mean, they gave us a lot of stuff to digest. I think Greg submitted everything that Adam sent to us, the whole council, because they gave us a list for us to chew on. We'll continue looking at it and see what maybe we can do. But it seems like in the center city we have to do that. The outside boroughs, because basically what they do is they come into the city and then they go out to the outer parts of the city. So I'm not sure what more we can try to ask them to do, but the committee's still looking at it, and we'll plug away at it. The request for the convex mirror on West Street Ravine Parkway, we brought that back up again, Mayor. We're not going to make any recommendations to do that because it's not part of the Department of Transportation's approved traffic control devices. There's some concern about liability, who takes it, who's going to be responsible for it. Chris did give us another idea is when they get back to that intersection, he would like to try to change that intersection a little bit to make it more friendly, but that's on a longer scale plan. Yeah. But that's the reason why the mirror hasn't been put up before, which also led to another whole discussion about the mirrors that are across Oneonta, who's responsible for them, who put them up, because we don't go back and put them up if something should happen to them. What's the liability of somebody putting them up? What should the city do? So we're gonna kind of take a look at that and see where we're gonna go with that, and that might be something that will make a recommendation to the legislative committee to eventually come in front of the council.
I'll grab that from the minutes and forward it
Yep.
to the constituent who's concerned.
So we did talk about handicap on parking spaces by 34 D Street. I believe we are gonna put one up towards the front of the building as a start. D Street parking lot is still on the agenda. We're not completely done with it. There's, we're still going back and forth on how we can do better flows, more parking, how we can do that. So I don't want you to think it's dead. It's not. We're still working at it. Another part of the conversation that we had regarding D Street, and I know it's the topics in front of us about the closure for one day out of the month in each parking lot, is actually preventative maintenance. It's to be able to get in, get them cleaned, be able to take a look at them during the winter months, be able to make sure we get them clean, because we're pushing snow in certain spots and we start losing spots. I gonna strongly disagree. I think there's been more sufficient justifications to start this process. This is just a starting point to see what's going to work. If it doesn't work, we can fine tune it, but we need to have a starting point, and that's what we're doing. And it's all the lots, because all the lots need to be clean, all the lots need to be taken care of. And it's like I said, it's a starting point, and that's where we figured we needed to do the starting point. And then we can modify it as we go. Nothing, even though we had to do the change, it can always be changed and be changed and be changed.
And it's
So-
an item for council discussion a little bit later on.
So but it's part of this report because we did discuss that. The roundabout, we talked about the roundabout, some of the traffic concerns there. Our DOT, our DPW director, Chris, and Greg, our city administrator, we had a good conversation about this on why the city can't change certain signs, is because if we touch a sign, then we take all liability for the project. This is not a city project, this is a state project. But every concern that gets forwarded to our city administrator or common council or the city DPW director will be forwarded to the Department of Transportation's regional person in charge of it. Wasn't the best news we wanted to hear, because we were trying to take care of stuff. Some suggestions were sent up the line. I don't know if Chris has heard anything back from them yet or not, about how we can change some of the stuff to try to ease it for our residents in the city. We also talked about green cemeteries, which I didn't know green cemeteries even existed. So, I mean, that was a great conversation. We want to work with the group on maybe trying to find some land so that they can further this process. They're willing to do a lot of the legwork for us. Cecilia, I forgot the name of the committee that's going to look.
So we actually, as I recall the conversation, the green cemeteries wasn't really the appropriate
Right.
discussion for CLIC, that it really should have been to the Climate Smart Communities Task Force, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're arranging so that we eventually could perhaps act as some kind of broker with the folks that are starting up this nonprofit to start a green cemeteries program and eventually find space somewhere in the city, which is what they're looking for. So the Climate Smart Communities could be the location to do that in terms of linking them to a nonprofit or some other organization that could help them with that task. That's their main goal. So I agree, it was a really fascinating discussion.
And also, I didn't realize we could get points towards the green
Right.
initiative for the city. as
Yeah,
well. So-
potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So, Len, you're a godsend, because I didn't take really good notes. So we did deposits in the park events. We had a couple events where the park was left in disarray, so the DPW director asked us if we could institute the deposit for that, which we were in favor of to do that. And then we had a big talk about the bathrooms in both the Damaski field and around the pickleball courts, because we got people sleeping in them overnight. Part of the reason being that our police department gets busy, so they can't always get down there and get them locked. We did ask Greg to have a conversation with another department that's here 24/7 to see if maybe they could, if the police department's busy, if they could just run down and lock those doors. Not ask them to do any kind of removal, just lock the doors, make sure that they're secure. We're waiting to hear back from that before we go ahead and try to take on more costs for more porta-johns down there. They said that the program's working pretty good with the porta-johns, so I guess that was, doing that program was beneficial to the city. Then we asked, Councilmember Mosier Campoli asked about the benches that they'll be reinstalled in the Mahler Plaza. Public Works Director spoke about design and what's gonna work there and what could come back and how they're gonna try to do that for for the stage, which has been a big hit so far on the days that it's been used, so hopefully that's gonna continue far into the future. I think that's it as I stumble over all of it.
Yeah, that's pretty good, actually. So Katie's got a question.
I have a question. It's in regard to motion 12 with the location of the handicap parking space. I'm happy to see that this is moving forward. I received some inquiries from people who live in the building about where we were with this, so I appreciate the Quality of Life Committee, and I'm assuming that it came from, engineering to put that forward. My question is around the choice of the location on that stretch. Like, why is it at the far, northwestern corner of the building, and not in front of where the door is?
There's a curb cut. There's an access there
Okay, I thought so.
existing without having to add one. But they wanted to put it as close as they could to that.
That makes sense. So my question is, we just, as Maureen mentioned, we just put in the bollards. Well, they're sort of bollards.
Delineators, we call them.
Delineators. Excellent. Okay, I just learned something new. We put in the delineators to create a safer walkway to the accessible entrance in the back of the building. So, again, I'm just wondering, I feel like when I look at that stretch, I walk that way every day, and so do you, so, that's probably the north section of the street, that stretch of the street is probably the least helpful, because there are accessible spaces right there already in the Dean Street lot, and more is better, but I think that having some toward the south end of the street, of the stretch, makes more sense if it can't be right in front. But then again, I also think I hate to spend money, but it might be worth putting in a curb cut to put in a true accessible parking space in front of the building, as we're supposed to do. So I don't know if it's possible to pull that motion, discuss it further, or pull it so that I can vote no on it, but as it stands, I feel like that's probably not in my mind, that's not the best solution to the problem. So, I don't know if there's more that you wanna say about that, or Mark, if you'd like to entertain my request to just pull it and vote on it with motion 13, so we could talk about it more,
Yeah,
or?
so I think probably the process would be, we vote on the consent agenda, it fails, we pull the motion out that you want to pull out, and then institute the consent agenda, probably minus that.
With the consent agenda,
As-
even if I vote
just-
no, the
yes.
consent agenda probably won't fail, so we don't have an opportunity to discuss it. If I vote no on the consent agenda, that's one vote, it will pass, we won't get an opportunity to discuss it.
Yeah,
Mike has to
I
comment.
hear where you're at. I'm concerned about the precedent of pulling from the consent agenda on the night of the council meeting.
Wow, really? I mean, it's, okay, I find that absurd, only because we got it on Sunday, and what's the difference? Do you know what I mean? But, okay, it's your meeting.
Yeah. And we can always come back and re-legislate anything.
I'm well aware.
Right now.
Thank you.
I know you are.
I don't know where this culture of like expedience and we can't be bothered and over routineifying everything. I have an idea of where it stemmed from, but I think that it
Right.
really
Let's-
hinders
yeah,
business.
okay,
You can go ahead and gavel me. You've been aching to do it for months.
Can we, all right.
I find that we have stopped
Point
discussing
of order.
this in favor
Point
of
of
1 hour
order. Katie.
meetings
Can we cut-
at
can we
the
stop?
precedent, at the preference of a few council members. I find that every time. And I find it very, very
Mayor,
disappointing.
could you please gavel?
He did gavel me.
Yes.
I didn't yield, and I
I-
don't
And
yield.
that's not appropriate.
It's my right
right.
as a council member.
Let's, please.
It's not your right to sit there and tell me.
Please.
I'm so frustrated with your behavior. You too. I am.
This is, you are out of line.
Wait,
Yes, so are you.
Let's,
Out of line. Unbelievable.
Mayor?
You know,
Michael.
unbelievable.
I'm not gonna address this conflict at the moment, but I think it's something we should talk about in the future. I wanna go back to the question that we were discussing, which is, it seems to me that we could either collectively, if we think it should be removed from the consent agenda, vote down the consent agenda and then take that thing out and then vote for the consent agenda, or I wanna ask our legal assistant, our legal advice, but couldn't we vote for the consent agenda and then revisit it later, revisit that motion later in the meeting?
That's what I
Even
was
if we
discussing.
passed it, we could then,
Anything can be legislative.
we can then re-vote on it, or discuss it, even if we just passed it. I don't know what the cleaner way to do it is.
Correct, David did tell us that an item
So-
on the agenda could be brought back up and
Right.
So what's the cleaner way to do it?
So,
remove it from the consent agenda, but this is the mayor's prerogative.
right, we do have an agreed upon process. And again, I am leery of establishing a precedent where that process is now not something that we follow. However, we can vote down the consent agenda and then pull it apart, or we can vote for the consent agenda and revisit anything.
Okay.
So those are the options. Unless we don't have David here with us today, but I believe that's correct.
And that's the problem.
So I appreciate that. Thank you, Michael. All right. Where we were was in a report from the CLIC, and we were entertaining any other questions or concerns or thoughts about the report. Have we any? Okay. All right. In that case, we'll move on to our Budget Review Committee, and Elaine, if you would, please.
Okay, so Budget Review Committee met last week. We heard from Department of Public Works. There are excellent details in those minutes. Lots of numbers and details that I encourage everybody to get familiar with, just like there have been in the other budget review meetings. In July, so in this month now, will be our last presentation from OPT, so we'll hear from our public transit system. And then our final meeting will be in August. We will discuss our findings and what we're going to report back to the full council for timely inclusion in the budget process.
Okay. Questions, comments? Yes, Mike.
Just a comment, although I agree that it's a excellent summary, lots of details, I just want to say that one of the key things that we discussed was the need to find ways, opportunities for the public to volunteer to do some things that city staff are not doing, and that there would be, as with the goal of reducing overtime, that there would be efficient ways to, something like one example we talked about was flag raising, that like a flag raising on the weekend requires someone to come in, work a minimum, get paid at 3 hours, at time and a half, so basically getting paid 4.5 hours to raise a flag, whereas we had a volunteer corps of flag raisers. I'm sure there would be people in this community who would be enthusiastic to be part of that. So that was just one example, but I think the question of how we can coordinate volunteers is one that we need to explore.
And that's actually an item that I'll be bringing back to the Community Wellness Committee for discussion.
Okay, Katie.
I was gonna say that in community wellness, we had previously discussed, as Mike probably remembers, not just for city volunteering tasks, but for, to support our local organizations who are also having a great need for volunteers, to be able to connect interested people with relevant opportunities. So I think that's great. I'm really happy to hear that you're gonna continue that, because we had an idea for a section of our website.
Right.
Yeah, so
I can address that.
I would love for that to keep going. Cool.
No, you have.
No, I'm saying I would love for that
Yeah,
idea
yeah,
to keep
so,
rolling.
I meet with, both college presidents regularly, and, in, our last meeting, or one of our last meetings, mine and, SUNY Oneonta's college president, we both kind of came to, a consensus that it wasn't going to happen through the computer science department at SUNY. So we move it to Hardwick.
So
And
I like
and
that
Siri
approach,
says, I
yeah.
didn't get that, can you try that again? So I have a meeting with the president of Hardwick, and we'll look to see whether or not we can continue. Because I'm enthusiastic about the possibility.
Can I just follow up with one
Sure.
thing? So I know that SUNY has, and this is just a general observation that ties in, SUNY has the Drive for 135 for 135 internships, and I think that at the city, we have a lot of opportunities for experiential learning, and I would love to see, I know it sounds like that door has closed on that particular one, but I think just in general, I would love to see some of that work supported by internships with the school. So
agree.
maybe that's something they could be interested in because of the drive they have.
Yeah, and don't mistake, what I'm saying. SUNY is very interested in, being integrated into to the benefit of the city.
Yeah, for sure.
It was simply the computer science project just wasn't going to happen there.
Okay.
We just both, kind of realistically assessed it and said, okay, we'll move on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions for Elaine?
So if Harvard College can't do it, where do you think they can go? Because I agree with Mike that that's, maybe we're just stumbling onto something that could help the city out.
Yeah. So again, and I have a nice connection at the Hardwick College Science, Computer Science Lab, and I can have that conversation with him. But appropriately, I'll have the conversation with the president first. Yeah. Further, for Elaine? Right. Well, thank you very much, folks. And we'll move on to the Finance and Human Resources Committee, and Cecilia, if we could, please.
Thank you. So we approved a couple of appointments to the Public Arts Commission, which I actually have comments and questions about when we hear from the city administrator from that report. And I also, we led a discussion on the strategic planning for the coming budget season. And so we had a kind of overview of where we're at with the strategic plan and what we're going to be doing with the strategic plan moving forward, and kind of how that links into, and how, just as a finance committee, we'd like to have the strategic plan really be the guide in terms of our budgeting process. And so that was the next steps we talked about, is what that would look like and what the strategic plan ultimately will kind of feed into in terms of budgeting. I actually had a quick question for Ginny, because I have notes about, you had talked about providing 4 years, I believe, or is it 5 years of comparison around budgets? Made that available to us? Is that correct? Okay. So that's the other, for our next meeting, we're gonna, in terms of getting ready for budgeting, we're gonna be looking at a comparison between years from 2020 to 2024 that the finance director will make available to us.
All right. I have, all done, all set. Any
I'm all
questions
set.
for Cecilia? Comments? No. All right. In that case, we will move on to our approval of warrants. Yes, I'm sorry. There was a question. Mike?
I don't know if we need to say anything about the OPT discussion, just to let people know, or any news. I guess it's fine.
We moved the OPT Title VI discussion to the consent agenda and approved the OPT's use of the federal regulations for the city. we had a discussion regarding that.
Thanks.
Okay, all right. If there are no more questions or comments for finance, thank you very much, Cecilia. We'll move on to the approval of warrants. With motion number 1, that the common council approves the warrants totaling $2,413,288.76, and that the same be placed on the finance director's desk for payment as presented. Do I have a motion to approve? I have Len, followed by Don, and we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Mosher Campoli.
Aye.
Councilmember Welch Russo.
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart.
Yes.
Councilmember Matheson.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we've got the consent agenda, and we've heard what some options are around that. I want to call out a couple of names, Cassandra Miller and Katie DeJong, who have volunteered to join our Public Arts Commission. Our chair of the Public Arts Commission, Emily Falco, has spent time with those folks and several others. A really wonderful group of candidates. It was hard to pick. We picked 3. There's one more that will be coming when there's a term expiring. But I want to just recognize those folks for stepping up. It's great when people do, so thank you very much to them. And so our consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve? I have Elaine, followed by Mike, and we'll take the vote, please.
Oh.
Yes, Mike. We'll take the vote, Mike.
Councilmember Mosher Campoli.
Aye.
Councilmember Welch Russo.
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
No.
Councilmember Carson.
No.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart.
No.
Councilmember Matheson.
Can I ask the count?
You have 3 for, 3 against.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Okay, so the motion fails, and at this juncture then, I would suspect that if we were to remove a motion, we could probably consider the consent agenda. Am I right in assuming that? By consensus?
Do you want a motion?
No. I don't believe we need a motion. I think the motion that's in question is motion number 12, is it? All right. I wonder if I need a motion to remove. Maybe I do. I don't have the legal. No, I don't. So I'm simply going to remove motion number 12. Thank you very much. My legal assistant here. We're going to remove motion number 12. And then motions 2 through 11 are now on the table, and we will look again for a motion to approve. Do I have a motion to approve? I've got Elaine, followed by Len, and we'll take the vote.
Councilmember Mosher Campoli.
Aye.
Councilmember Welch Russo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart.
Yes.
Councilmember Matheson.
Yes.
That worked. All right, so we will move on. We'll bring that motion up on the other side with our discussion items, and we'll move on right now to our city administrator's report. Greg.
Thanks, Mayor. A few things that are coming up. A lot of these you'll see on the next Finance and Human Resources Committee agenda. The Lawn Ave and Hill Place water main replacement. We've received bids for that. That'll be coming forward as the title suggests, replace water main on Lawn Ave and Hill Place. That's a project where we're hiring a contractor to do the excavation and the installation of the water main. We've already purchased the materials, and DPW will be assisting with that installation and traffic control and related items. Westcott Lot retaining wall, we've also received bids for that. That will go to the next Finance Committee, so we'll be seeing that coming through next time. Swart Wilcox Barn, we are working on an agreement that we would hope to have council approve, as well as a private property owner who's interested in donating the barn materials that will be used to construct a portion of that project. So that agreement needs to go through the Finance Committee. Construction bidding will follow that. Sales tax for April has been received. April we received $464,000, which is $28,000 more, or 6.6% more than 2024. Year to date, we're at 2.03 million, which is about 70,000, or 3.5% more than 2024. 2025 budget includes 5.8 million total. We also have an RFP. We've received 4 proposals through the RFP for city tree inventory update. That's a budgeted line item in Public Works budget this year. So we'll see that coming through finance and HR as well. That'll inventory roughly 3,100 trees, as well as almost 1,500 vacant planting sites. This was last done probably over 10 years, maybe not quite 15 years ago, so this is an update of our existing inventory. We're looking at options to do a 5-year budget benefit analysis, as well as a planting plan and a tree canopy analysis as part of that, budget permitting. The annual financial audit is underway with our auditor BST working remotely with Ginny. So that process, as happens every year, is going on now. We also, and I think kind of from what Len had shared with me earlier, the council received an email today from the New York State Office of the State Comptroller sharing some information about the cyber audit that they're conducting of the city. We had met with them about a week ago, I believe, Carrie and Ginny and several members from Pyramid, our IT consultant, going over what that process will entail. It's a relatively routine process. They go through different municipalities every year. We haven't been audited since 2012 or 13? In this case, they're focusing on our IT systems. That'll take a couple of months, 2 to 3 months, I believe, before we're wrapped up. Ultimately, there will be a public report that's shared with the council and the public that will come from that. And I believe in that email that was sent to council today, there's contact information for the program manager. If you have any questions or want to reach out to them directly to ask about that. And then a couple of city policy considerations that I want to share with you now. We can have a little discussion if you'd like, or just be aware of them. We'll bring these through the Finance and HR Committee as well, once we have a chance to draft them. You often see motions for projects where usually we're awarding a contract and we might be saying we're going to spend $500,000, whatever number it is, from a specific restricted reserve fund. And typically those are large equipment purchases for whatever department or bigger projects in public works. Typically they're included in our capital plan and or in the adopted budget. So if you look in the 2025 adopted budget, in the back there's a equipment replacement schedule. It shows what equipment, larger things that we're replacing this year, and it'll indicate if that's coming from a particular reserve. So the council's approved that purchase of that particular thing or service, and they've approved that it's coming from a particular reserve, like the highway equipment reserve to buy a new street sweeper or whatever it may be. So that's all been approved in the budget process, but just our past practice, because of the way things have been done, we've brought those motions back through council again a second time for the council to approve that money being taken out of that reserve. It's an unnecessary step, I believe, because we've already approved it, so we'd like to draft a policy for you to consider that we just clarify that we're not going to do that. If we have a project or an equipment that's budgeted, approved, and then adopted budget, and we're going to go forward with procuring that through our normal purchasing policies and procedures, that we don't come back for a second approval of using that particular reserve fund. But we'll draft some language for you to read and consider, but maybe something to think about, or if you have any initial feedback, feel free to share that now or anytime. And then the second piece of that, a related proposal, would be approval of joint purchasing contracts. This is in our purchasing policies and procedures now. We can use these joint purchasing contracts like Sourcewell. You see a lot of our vehicles are purchased through these contracts that have already been awarded by purchasing consortium. They've already done the bidding, so we don't have to do that. And we're just jumping onto that contract to use it efficiently. So we've been bringing those to council for a specific motion to approve for as long as I've worked here. But with the change that was made a year or so ago that allows the city administrator to execute purchasing contracts that are arrived at through the purchasing policies and procedures. So there's those different purchasing limits depending on the type of work it is. If it's over a certain amount, we have to do a formal bid. Anytime we do a formal bid, we bring that through council or an RFP. In this case, someone else did the formal bid. We're just executing a contract. The bid pricing set that's already been done by someone else, so we'd like to consider in those cases, let's just forego the council approval because there is no bid to award. It's just a contract to be signed, and it's within the purchasing policy and procedure. So Don,
Who makes the decision to make the purchase?
That's a combination between, our purchasing agent, the department head, the relevant department head or department heads. In the case of a vehicle or something, our fleet manager with, let's say it's a street sweeper, using that example, that would be the Department of Public Works director and the street supervisor. They'd work on what the specs are that they want. They deliver those, send those specs to the different companies that are on these contracts. They, agree on what's included and that it's on this source well or whatever the consortium may be. So we get that price, and if it's within our budget, and it meets the specs that we're looking for, and it's something the city council's approved, then they would bring that through, again, our purchasing agent, Ginny and I, as the finance director and the city administrator, would ultimately approve that, and I would be the one that would sign the contract.
Ordinarily, wouldn't the council vote on that?
The council now is required to vote on any contracts that went through a formal bid process. So if something is over $35,000 for public work or over $20,000 for materials purchase, we do a formal bid, and those are approved by council. Same thing with RFPs. So for consultants is over $20,000, we would have that approved by council as well. The difference with these joint purchasing consortium contracts, they may be for $150,000, and we technically do not need to bring that to council if it's already been budgeted, because the council is not awarding a bid, we're just executing a contract. We do this already with, it's not a joint purchasing contract, but it's a New York State Office of General Services contracts, things like purchasing asphalt for paving River Street. The council didn't, I don't believe, pass a motion to purchase the asphalt, but we're using a contract New York State issued and did a bidding for, and we're just using that. So we would be treating it the same as that.
So would the council, not for the individual purchases, but for the policy
They have the
change,
discussions, all right.
would the council then make that change? He has to make the change? No, it's not the individual contracts, but to change this policy.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that we would write specific language for a policy, and we'd bring that to council
That was my question.
to approve or not. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything further for Greg?
Yes.
Yes.
When do you think you're gonna kick out this draft, Greg, so we can all put eyes on it?
It's been on every finance agenda since January, and it's been pushed off each time just because of workload, so I don't want to commit, but we've been hoping to get this in place this year.
Okay.
It hasn't been a rush because we've been doing, it's just a matter of another thing that goes through the finance committee agenda and council agenda process. So it creates some efficiencies, a little bit less work on the staff, but it's not a high priority to push through, in my opinion.
And then the sales tax, that was bid up to what date?
That's through April.
Through April.
So if you multiply that by 3 years, over 6 million versus the 5.8 we budgeted.
Let's just, we need that in order to do the math in my head.
Anything further for Greg? Greg, do you have anything further?
That's all.
Oh, I actually.
Yes.
So I had mentioned that there was, in the finance discussion, we approved a few folks for the Public Arts Commission. And I had a member of the commission come to me and speak about funding that had been available for public murals. And I was just curious, because I wasn't aware of the details in terms of, or at least I couldn't recall the details from any council discussions, that there had been a set amount put aside for public murals and that amount is no longer available. So I was just curious about the decision-making, specifically for public murals, for public art.
So if I gather that, so there was a New York State DOS grant that's part of the DRI project that $16,000 out of that grant,
Right.
DOS had said we could spend that on public art. We needed to close the DOS grant at the end of the calendar year last year. So last year, now 2 years, last year. So we shifted some things around so that there's, and I will defer to Judy or Ginny now to explain this particular, if we want to get into details as to the other potential funding source. It's from repayments, loan repayments through Housing Visions, and I'll let Ginny explain that much better than I can. But because we had to close that DOS contract, that's why there is no DRI, specifically DRI money available for public art. Also, the other issue, we would have had that spent if Foothills had moved forward with the mural that they had originally expressed interest in having, and they, I think, believe had a matching grant of $16,000.
Yep.
For whatever reason, the board decided not to move forward with that, so that mural fell through, and at that point in time, line didn't make any sense. We couldn't complete a mural before the end of the year, so we had to move things around. So the $16,000 that was intended to be spent, some public art through the DRI, was instead spent on other DRI projects, so everything else just goes to the big account.
Judy, anything you want to add to that?
The thought is to still use that in the DRI Market Street project area.
I'm sorry, Judy, I'm sorry, could you clarify?
The $16,000 that we no longer have in the DRI grant, we have set aside in the city funds. The purpose of that all along for the past few years has been to use it in the DRI Market Street project area. So our intent is to still use it for that, probably on the Water Street wall.
So there is still the possibility of using this funding?
In the DRI project.
In the DRI for that amount, for that 16,000, or would it be, okay, so that's still floating?
That's still floating.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just a
not
different
DRI
source.
funds.
It's just a different source. Okay, I don't think that's clear to some folks on the commission, so,
We've tried to make it clear.
okay.
That's
I can relay that as well.
Thank you, Judy, for the
Yeah,
clarification.
thank you very much.
Ginny, do you want to add anything to
No,
that? or you're
nothing
okay?
covered, thank you.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have anything else for Greg? Okay. My remarks couldn't be more short. 4th of July is a few days from now. Great time to get reconnected with why they founded this country. We have a parade at 1 o'clock. It'd be great to see all folks here in attendance, some on council, all invited to march. A great festivity, a great number of festivities taking place in the park. Following day, all kinds of stuff happening all over the city, including Muller Plaza. So it's going to be a nice weekend. Go out, enjoy it, and give some thought to what this country was. Why we fought for this country. So with that, I'm going to move on to yes, Don.
Could you give me the location to?
Foothills. For the parade?
Yeah.
I believe it's Foothills. It's Foothills to, so assembling, if you're bringing a float, Don, you want to get there about 45 minutes early. But if you're looking to march, find me, find Len. I expect we'll probably be down there. There'll be a number of folks down there, and join us. Okay? All right. With that, I'd like to move to motion number 12.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
I was just waiting for you to get done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I had a question about the Housing Commission, because within an email that you sent to council,
Yes.
you said you had a candidate.
I do, and there was just a little bit of a hiccup. I'll have that candidate's name for
Okay.
you for the next meeting.
So is it 2 names or just? the
Just,
one?
I think we just got the one opening right now. Okay. All right. And we have actually the Commission on Community Relations and Human Rights as well. We've got a couple of folks coming. So lots coming. Lots, in fact, that will kind of expand my remarks next time we get together. There's a lot to talk about, but pending. So look forward to that. Motion number 12, that the Common Council authorizes the following changes to the city code and authorizes the Department of Public Works to install and or remove the appropriate signs. Add to section 282-23, parking reserved for the handicapped. Name of the street is Deet Street. Location is one space on the east side near the northwestern corner of the apartment building at 34 Deet Street. Do I have a motion to approve? I've got Don, followed by Mike, and discussion. Discussion?
I just want to start by saying, from what we heard from residents, there does seem to be a need for additional spaces, and so, Greg, maybe could you just give us a quick overview of what's there and how it's being used?
Off the top of my head, there are 2 handicap designated spaces in the Deet Street parking lot directly behind the building. There are 7 total, I believe.
I believe that's what we said.
4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there are 7 total in the lot. The one that's proposed here is on the street, on Deet Street in front of the building, closest to the northern end of the building. I don't believe there are any others along the street until you get down to directly across from the Wall Street parking lot. There's an on-street space there, and there are a couple in the Wall Street lot itself.
So at the northern end of the building, it's next to the driveway, so that although there's not a curb cut, somebody could use the driveway to get up to the sidewalk, is that?
That's the curb cut they would be able to use,
Yeah.
as it stands. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Katie? Do you have
Well,
anything?
I said what I thought before. I think that, you know, especially now hearing that the curb cut that we're relying on is the driveway. I don't think that meets the intent of an ADA parking space to have someone walk into or move into a lane of traffic, cars. So, I mean, to me, it just doesn't, again, I'm really familiar with the area. It doesn't seem like the best spot for that. I won't turn it down because, like I said, more is needed. More is better. More are needed. But I think that this feels like an opportunity to either check it off or get it right. And I think we're doing the former. So that's my take.
Okay, Elaine?
Yeah, I think, you know, something that Councilmember Harrington said before about the parking, that, you know, we're looking for a starting point, and that's where, you know, quality of life and infrastructure came from with making this recommendation, is that we recognize the need, and I did confirm, you know, it's 7 spots currently in that parking lot. There are 6 required, so we are, you know, making sure that we go above to meet the needs of the building. And I think this is one area that we may start with a spot there, and you know, I think it gives us an opportunity to see how that works out, at least starting somewhere.
Good. Mike?
Just clarification, those 7 spots are the entire lot, including over by the Y and by the, okay.
Yeah.
Different areas.
Just so you know, no matter what we do with handicap spots, they cannot be reserved for specific,
Right.
you know, it's all general
You know, public parking.
public, you know. One of the questions I have about trying to put a curb cut in, as I think about it, is out in front, is you, no matter what you do, if you're a driver, you're gonna have to get out in the lane of traffic. So to get, because you can't park your vehicle from the curb cut, because then you're not gonna get into it, so we'd have to like really take a look at that sidewalk and the parking spots in front of it, which I'm okay doing. You know, like I said, you know, like Councilmember Moser Capoli said, as a starting point to get, to address the quick need of what was being asked as we're still going through parking in general. You know, and maybe that's on me, I didn't make that very clear, is we're still looking at the parking in D Street because we know that there's issues, and how can we, because you're balancing both the residents and the general public that parks there for other uses with the buildings around. So, you know, it's not dead by any way, shape, or form, just so you know, Katie, we're still looking at it.
Elaine?
Yeah, just, you know, to build on that, you know, these are recommendations that, you know, the committee came to after months, you know, of hearing from folks, you know, looking for recommendations, and then trying to see which recommendations would fit best, or at least give us a starting place. Because again, I certainly don't want to see this delayed, you know, while we have something that will work for now, while we have a chance to continue to evaluate it. Like even the motion about, you know, the next one, they're all things that, you know, we can continue to look at and has been part of our intention every step of the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I being
Yeah,
recognized?
yes.
I agree totally with that. And I wouldn't hold it up. I will emphasize that I hope that the committee will continue to look at it, because I don't think that, I think the issue is that it's not, like, of course, every accessible parking space, if you're you're driving, you have to get out into the streets. True, on Main Street, it doesn't make it less of an accessible parking space. But I think the issue that I have is that, in order to get up on the sidewalk, you have to go into like a vehicular driveway, whereas on the other side near the Green Innovation Center, there is what's delineators? There's a line of delineators. That means that no cars, like there's a curb cut, but there's no cars that will be driving in that. I'm assuming it's 36 inches from the raised curb to the ground. It's probably 36 inches wide, right? Or wider? Okay. So all that to say, I agree with you about this one and with the next one, and I hope that you will, I will be sure to follow up to make sure that that continues, because I think that, we talk all the time about safe streets, complete streets, and I want to make sure that we're not just kind of doing a bare minimum, which I think was referenced earlier. So yeah, I was going to say something else, but I forgot it, so it's okay.
Lynn?
So, Mike or Greg, if we move this spot further down in front of the Harper College section, does that make sense? So that you're not, if I was in a wheelchair, I wouldn't feel comfortable going in the driveway. So if we move this spot down towards this 36-inch
Lynn, do you mind just addressing, because it's hard to hear if you're just addressing Mike, could you address the council, please? Thank you.
I'm asking the question of whether or not moving the spot more suddenly
Right.
so that we can take advantage of the delineation lines makes more sense.
Thank you.
I'm not familiar with this.
I'm not familiar enough with it either, but I do think, just on principle, that although it's not it's not a very busy driveway, it does seem like we should, when we can, keep wheelchairs and driveways separate,
Scott?
So, moving it down to the south of the building, that's the exit. And we had sightline issues with that, and we took out a parking spot to help with that line sight issue. And I'm not sure if we move that down, then you're gonna be coming in against traffic, which I know when you walk, you're supposed to go against traffic. I just don't know if that would be as safe, because you'd have to get out of here. I'm just trying to think, if I was in a wheelchair, get out, and you gotta come into traffic, come back up and around. I'm just, like the sight line that we already had, that's what I'm worried about. And I understand where you're coming from with what we just put in there with the delineations, but I really haven't researched it enough to sit there and think that might be I think that might be another safety issue.
Elaine?
Is this something?
Thank you for the reminder about the.
I'm sorry. Elaine?
Yeah, thank you for the reminder about the sight lines. I'd forgotten that bit. The other thing that I want to point out, we're really focusing on the driveway. There's also a sidewalk right there. So, it has, the curb cut will provide access to the driveway as well as the sidewalk. And I also think we need to remember that not everybody who uses handicap parking spaces is going to be in a wheelchair.
Right.
Mike?
I believe, if I remember correctly from what we heard from residents previously, that one of the issues is that that only the rear entrance to the building is accessible and the front has a step. So, I don't know, I kind of feel like we are at this point micromanaging the placement of a parking spot, and maybe we can just more generally support that there be a handicap spot in that block, and let city staff work, check in with residents and figure out what's most desirable to them.
Does the chapter 282 have to be specific? Or can we say between here and there?
So that,
Well,
the code change should be as specific as it is,
Okay.
to be enforceable
Okay.
ultimately.
Katie?
Is there any plan to make the pathway where the delineators are now more permanent? No.
There's not at this time.
Okay.
That was a simple and relatively expensive.
Yeah. Also, I'm thrilled about it.
Okay, Elaine? No? Done. All right, anybody? Yes,
Yes,
Katie?
sorry. So one of the things that's been brought up, and I did want to say, I appreciate the reminder that it's a public parking lot, and so we can't reserve spaces. One of the things that I wanted to follow up on, because I was thinking in my head, like, does the city have an obligation to provide parking for the building? And I'm thinking back to the sale of the property, and in the parking garage, I don't know if we deeded to them, but we promised a certain number of parking spots in the parking garage, right? Ginny remembers.
Ginny?
From what I remember, I was not in the room, but from what I was informed, there was an agreement that Kearney was going to pay for a certain number of parking spots in the parking garage.
Okay.
And that, matter of fact, the residents were not supposed to park in the Deep Street lot. with
That's
the
right.
agreement.
That's right.
So because Deep Street lot is a public parking spot, it's not a private parking spot for the residents anywhere in the neighborhood. The whole thing is public. So, what I was told, like I said, I was not in the room, but I was informed that he was going to pay for a certain number of parking spots in the parking garage.
And that hasn't been happening presently. Okay.
All right, Len?
Yeah, to add on that, I think it was 32 parking spaces at $36,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because we're getting $70,000 a year to start with 2% escalator.
And I just want you to know that of the 70,000 for the pilot, the city ends up with about 21,000 of that, because the school ends up with the majority of it, right? And then the county gets their portion.
Len?
So just to add in, I mean, Scott brings up a really good point. That no matter what, if the driver of the vehicle is handicapped, they're going to come out into traffic. And so, for me, I'm no on this, because it makes more sense to put the handicap parking space back inside the parking lot somewhere.
I guess also the intent is it just for residents going into the building, or is it
No,
just
I'm just thinking, if it was me and I was in
Right.
need of a handicap spot, I would feel more comfortable being inside a parking lot rather than out in public.
Mike?
Len, I understand your point, but we've also heard requests from people to have more handicap accessible spaces on Main Street. You know, people like, I mean, my mom has has trouble walking, and, like, so, in my experience, like, we wanna put them as close as possible to where people are going. The question in this case is, where are the people going, you know? If they're going down to, further down Deep Street towards Main Street, then that's a different question, and I don't know how we can anticipate where people are gonna want to go.
Have we fairly well covered this at this point? Unless there's something else, maybe we can call the vote. Yes?
Yeah, I just wanted
Jody.
to the Quality of Life Committee members, from what I recall of our discussion about this particular location, it had to do with the fact that there was a door, that the assumption was that drivers would need access to that particular door, and the door was also a problem in terms of accessibility, but that's something that the city cannot mandate in any way. So what we thought was this particular, if I'm not mistaken, our discussion centered around the fact that this parking spot would be, make more sense because of the location to the door. So that, I just wanted to, if correct me, of course, but if I recall, that was the decision-making process.
All right, Katie?
Yeah, I think that you're right, at least from my understanding of the need for the space. It's to, as requested by the people of the building, although again, it would be a public parking space on the streets. That the issue, as I understand it, is, or as I can recall it, is that the rear door is accessible with a push button, with a ramp. However, the sidewalk ends, and now there are the delineators, on the south end. So there was nowhere on the south end that someone could travel safely on foot, specifically someone with a disability could travel safely. We have the delineators now, so it is easier, safer, slightly to get around the back of the building, at least for visibility's sake. The request was made to the building owner through various channels and on many occasions to have the front door, which has a ramp, but now I'm hearing that maybe there's a step there, so the ramp doesn't actually sit flush with, or maybe I misheard some chatter over here, but I thought that I heard that, but that can't be because the people who live there were requesting this. So the issue is that that's a keyed entrance, so it's not truly accessible because the door doesn't operate on its own. But that being said, they are working on, and I think that maybe the Catskill Center for Independence is assisting them with working on negotiating with the landowner or with the property owner to have that door be automated with a fob so that it is an accessible entrance from the front. The issue that I take with this is that this space is proposed to be still pretty far away from that door. So what I would like to see is a curb cut, and the door is in the middle of the building. So what we're saying is, if this is the door, we want to put the spot here, and because there's no curb cut here, but I think we should put the curb cut here so that this door becomes accessible. Maybe that's not possible today, but I wanted to make sure that it's discussed because I think ultimately that's the best use and of the, and best execution of the intent to make that building accessible. I think it also moves it closer to Main Street, closer to the Farmers Market in Huntington Park. There's some benefits there. But it's also closer at this point to the delineators, which are around the south end of the building, which make the back of the building accessible as well. So that's my whole thesis laid out with a diagram.
Right, Mike.
Question for Greg, what is the cost and difficulty of cutting a curb and putting out an accessible curb cut?
It depends on who's doing it. So if you're doing it in-house, or we don't have a job corps, Cement Mason's team working with us this summer, so it would be a contracted thing. It would be in the thousands of dollars, or less than 10. I'm not as connected anymore to specific numbers, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, there'd be a cost to it. You have to probably restripe the entire block there in front of the building in order to have a longer space, to have a curb cut that is kind of between spaces. If you're trying to address the driver getting out, coming around, and going across a ramp, so we'd have to get a quote on that from our contractor.
Okay.
Don.
Mayor, I believe the door on Market Street, on the Dean Street side is generally locked. We were in the lobby together one time.
Yes.
And that was one of the complaints.
Yeah, this is, Katie was actually referencing that, that's right.
I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, Katie was actually referencing that. There's conversations with the landlord to see what we can do about making that accessible.
Not only accessible, but it's always locked. You can't enter it.
Right,
now.
that's correct. That's correct. All right, if we have covered this and there's no other discussion, there's more.
I'm just not sure what the outcome is here. What's
Well,
the
right
way
now we
forward?
have the motion as is presented, and I guess the question is, are we voting aye or nay?
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank
All
you.
righty. So with that, if the clerk would please call the vote.
Councilmember Mosier Campoli?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch Russo?
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu?
Sure.
Councilmember Carson?
No.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart?
Yes.
Councilmember Matheson?
Yes.
Right, thank you. That takes us to motion number 13, which is a recent addition to the discussion agenda. Motion that the Common Council creates subsection F of 282-33, parking time limits in public parking lots, to be known as subsection F, overnight parking restrictions, with subsections 1 through 6 to read as follows. 1, Deet Street parking lot, southern section, no parking from midnight to 5 a.m. on the first Tuesday of the month. 2, Deet Street parking lot, northern section, no parking from midnight to 5 a.m. on the second Tuesday of the month. 3, Wall Street parking lot, no parking from midnight to 5 a.m. on the second Tuesday of the month. 4 Market Street parking lot, 47 Market Street, no parking from midnight to 5 a.m. on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. 5 Westcott parking lot, no parking from midnight to 5 a.m. on the 4th Tuesday of the month. And 6 City Hall parking lot, no parking from midnight to 5 a.m. Do I have a motion to approve? I've got Len. I've followed by Elaine, and discussion of this. Don?
Yeah, I would like to make a friendly amendment, and landlords in my ward have asked, this is the best I could come up with to meet their needs. And so to read, the Common Council further authorizes the Department of Public Works to install the appropriate signs in each of these parking lots only after the new Market Street parking lot, that's 47 Market Street, has been open to the public, at which time enforcement shall commence. So basically, it's delaying the implementation of the motion till, I think, September, October, something like that, when the new parking lot is open.
Okay, very good. Don, do I have a second on that? And
I'll
I've got that from Katie. And we can discuss that, and if not, then we can take a vote on that friendly amendment to the motion.
You don't have to vote on
I
the
don't
friendly
have to vote for
amendment.
that.
As long as there are no opposition. If there's
Is there any
opposition-
opposition to this friendly amendment? That's what makes it friendly, no? Okay, very good. So now the amendment having been added to the motion, do we have further discussion? So, yes. The amendment that's been added is delaying all of this until 47 Market Street is open to the public as a public parking lot, correct? Right. Otherwise, everything else is exactly as you see. Do we have, yes, Cecilia?
Yeah, so I have a question about,
Sure.
just for the city administrator, what would, or for, I guess, Don, for the people that you've spoken with, what exactly is the, purpose of delaying the change here? I mean, what would I think I asked you
Right.
previously, what would that additional time period allow, why push for that as opposed to just have
It's sort of a
this here?
compromise, because the landlords in question say that it's a hardship for their tenants. So this way, and there's fewer parking lots now that the city has because of the garage was demolished. But more parking lots will open, more parking spots will open when the new lot opens, so the tenants could go to this additional lot. It's a stopgap measure. It's not.
Cecilia, go ahead.
It doesn't really solve the problems that the landlords were citing, but I think this might help.
It provides parking spaces for those who might be confused, not know where to put their car. Cecilia?
And do we have a sort of clear estimate in terms of time frame?
Great.
We're looking at, as Don said, I would think in September, October, I would hope that we are opening that.
Did I see another hand? Mike?
I wanted to ask, Greg, I wanted to ask about the midnight to 5 a.m. hours partly because in our budget review committee discussion, we talked about this idea with Chris Yakubuchi, and he said there was some question about what will be the most efficient time to do it, because there was some thought that his plow drivers that come in at, I think, 3 a.m. would have time starting at 3 to do that. So I'm wondering if the midnight closing time is
So
necessary.
that came from discussion with DPW. Midnight is when the initial crew comes in to start, by hand sweeping or blowing out lots and moving things like along Main Street. They move that into the road, so the street sweeper comes in at 3 o'clock and cleans that up. So that's why there's that midnight start time, so we can get things kind of moved along and have the sweeper come through. That's when the crew is coming in. That's for more than just snow. That's more about cleaning. Snow depends on the storm when we're coming in. If we're coming in at 3 a.m. to start plowing, obviously this doesn't really apply in the case of plowing. We want people in lots at that time. but if they're coming in at 3 to clear snow from lots, and it's a Tuesday, and right Tuesday of the month, then they'll be able to get in there without any cars presumably and start that work and finish it while they are, the lot is empty. So I think it will work. Kind of rambled there a little bit. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I think you did. I'm just wondering about accommodating, some of the comments that I've heard about, that some of those lots are still being used by people going to bars at midnight. And so
And again, it won't be every lot that's closed.
Right, it's one
lot.
Right,
on a Tuesday.
And to me, honestly, for the most part, the Dietz Street, because there's a southern and northern section, it's not a big difference because most people, perhaps with the exception of people who need handicap spots, but for most people, they can just park in the other half of the lot and it's not a big issue. And so I'm more thinking about the Westcott lot and Wall Street lots.
Elaine?
Yeah, Greg, I'm hoping that you might be able to remind us about the parking studies, because I know that I kind of remember the daytime numbers, but I think there were some nighttime numbers as well. Is that right? And what were our percentages usually for our lots at night? Do you remember?
20% would be a lot. I can maybe.
Okay, so I mean, we're not even hitting 50. I mean, if we're hitting 20% of our spaces, then concerns about where people are going to park, even short term, are really kind of moot, it sounds, because we've got plenty of spaces.
Potentially minor inconvenience.
Yeah, I mean, it would involve moving to a different lot, but I think it also really addresses this issue that we keep hearing, again, something that we've addressed for a number of months on Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee, that folks would like to see the lots cleaned more regularly. And this gives us, again, a starting point so that we can at least evaluate what works and move on from there.
Right, Scott.
So I'm gonna address a couple things. Between emails that were sent, things that were said, this is not a knee-jerk reaction. I actually resent that got sent to me. This has been a discussion for a period of time. People have had, we've listened to a lot of people, we've taken a lot of things into consideration. That's the first thing. Second thing is we get yelled at all the time that we're not being proactive. Here we are trying to do something proactive, and here we are going backwards in time, being told, can't do this is gonna do this is gonna hurt us here, this is gonna hurt us there. There is no perfect solution to anything that's not gonna cause some type of inconvenience at some point in time to anybody. Tomorrow they're gonna come down through River Street and plow blacktop in front of my house. I'm not gonna be able to get in and out of there for however long it takes them to do it. I'm gonna be inconvenienced, but you don't see me jumping up and down because it's a measure that we have to do. We have to take care of our roads, just like we gotta take care of our parking lots. We gotta keep them clean. We gotta make sure that we can assess them for damage. We gotta do all this stuff, and to make something a little bit easier for our city staff to be able to get in and get out so that they can be more productive within their job, to meet the other needs of everything that we're being asked of, I think this is a step into that direction. And I think, while change is hard, I think we have to embrace some type of change sometime. So I'm willing to give this a shot. We discussed this in length. We've had time to do it. We're back in the same old arguments of every time we try to do something. And at some point, we just got to try to do something, and we'll see where it goes. If it doesn't work, the committee's already said we'll step back with our city staff, we'll change the code. You're going to see it tonight. It's a simple vote. Yes, no, it goes. Same with doing stepping back and taking something out. Yes, no, and we take it away. I don't know what else to do to try to take this step and show progress, but maybe I'm just getting tired because it's my second term up here, but it seems like every step we take, we're getting beat up on something anymore. Even the simple things, and it's just let us try something. Just let the wheels go a little bit. Let's see how it works. It's not hard to step back from it.
As we've said now, a few times tonight, we can always re-legislate things. We think it's always come back and make things better if we need to. Go ahead.
Yeah, and again, thank you for bringing up the point about efficiency, because coming from the budget committee chair perspective, finding those efficiencies for staff is really important. That's one of the things that we're trying to do. So I also wanted to address, because I know that we had, discussed this idea about, closing it off periodically, right? Not on a routine, using the signs. And from, the feedback that we heard from Greg is that is not effective. And that it's very difficult to get all of the cars to move. We don't want to be in a position where people don't know that it's coming and then they have their car towed. We would much rather have this be something planned. They know when to expect it and people can plan for it. And it would reduce that kind of stress on folks, that they know what is coming.
Right. All right. If we've no more discussion on this, and it doesn't look like we have, let's call the vote, please.
Councilmember Mosier Campoli.
Aye.
Councilmember Welsh Russo.
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart.
Yes.
Councilmember Matheson.
Yes.
All right. Have we anything else for council consideration? Any additional business? Katie?
I just wanted to ask, and maybe I should have done it during discussion, although it wasn't entirely relevant, about a plan for more responsive or more, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say is, but basically, like, so we've recognized that this doesn't address like cleanup after like, emergency, snow emergencies. I think that, in some cases it could be 3 or 4 weeks before, between a snow emergency and the scheduled time that DPW would get in to clean out the lot. So I'm just wondering if there are any thoughts that have been floated, or where we might take the discussion now about having a quicker response time to snow emergencies.
So what we do now, or have been doing, is put up the temporary no parking signs without a nixle notice. We would still have to do that in those cases, because like you said, you have a snow on Wednesday, and that's the first Tuesday of the month. You're going to wait for the next first Tuesday of the month to do that certain lot, if it needs it. I mean, talking about when do we go in and clear snow, and it's been a DPW call as to what, storage space there still is in the lot as far as clearing the lot for the next snowstorm. If we get 3 feet of snow, it's probably going to need to be hauled out. If we get 6 inches, probably not. Unless that's the council sets a policy where we want to go in after every snowstorm, regardless of what the forecast may be, or, priorities may be, and make that a priority to clean the lot every time. That hasn't ever been a priority, or there hasn't been any sort of a standard procedure established or policy established by the council in that regard.
Okay.
That could be a conversation.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll just continue to do it that way. If we happen to get lucky and the snowstorm happens and we can go in there on the right Tuesday and clean something out, we'll take advantage of that. But otherwise, we're gonna have to temporarily post signs as needed.
Okay.
Anything else for council discussion consideration? Yes, Paul. Lynn.
Thank you.
I might have just missed it, but do we have a conclusion to the CA review by that subcommittee?
That was one of my things.
Yeah, that's, who's leading that now? It's been a while.
It's been just a group
Yeah,
thing. I mean,
the
Elaine's
group-
been the best about keeping us on target, but no one has responded.
Yeah,
So.
and I'm chairing 2 things
Can,
now,
can,
so
can
I'm
I ask
swamped.
Yeah.
the group, I believe of 4, to reconnect with that, and let's see if we can move that along so that we get to our next council meeting, we might be able to, per your, yes?
Yeah, no, I just had a question. Is there consensus around the deadline in terms of getting this?
It would be nice to have this.
Because we received
It-
one
the-
council member's
Yeah.
comment, and that's it.
Yeah, so I
in terms
think
of our being a
for the-
taskmaster for other council people, I think we need a hard deadline.
Yeah, thank you.
actually, I had provided
Yeah.
a schedule.
Yeah. And
I
there have
did.
been some reminders sent out, but still, I think we just
Yes.
have the one. So
So
we do need
let's
input
see
from
what
the
we
other
can do
council
about
members as
reconnecting
well.
with that, if we would. Thank you.
Okay.
Mike, you had something?
Just a question of clarification. Am I the one, because I sent mine in, so I want to make
Oh, I
sure
didn't.
you got it.
I don't think we
We
got
don't.
it.
Received it.
I don't think so.
I think we
I mean, I can
received
double
ours.
check, but
Right,
yeah, I
right.
don't remember seeing it.
All right, so you
And
guys
also I
will
can
have,
add-
you guys will have email conversations to determine where everyone is, and if anyone needs help or has a question, we have a group that's gone through this before, and we can make that happen.
Try to dedicate some time.
Do we have anything else for, yes, Mike?
One, just as we've been talking about parking, just one follow-up question for Greg. I know you've been working on a sort of downtown parking plan. Do you have any better idea of when you might be ready to bring that forward?
I'm hoping to schedule another parking strategies task force meeting in the next month and try to move things along. But it's been a struggle with any number of things. Things inch along sometimes until they jump ahead. So
I just wanted to encourage, I think it'd be great if, especially since we've delayed the implementation of this policy till September, October, if we can get that moving at the same time, it would be great.
Yeah, I think there's consensus within the context of City Hall if we want to move this along. Any further comments, discussion, anything for the public? There is, yes, Katie?
Oh, was I the only person with my hand up? Sorry. Yes, I wanted to ask, some time has passed now about, since we, made a decision on the sale of 27 Market Street, and for me, you know, a big thing was that we didn't just, for me, the goal is not to have it remain a parking lot forever, and I know that development takes time, so I was wondering if there was any thought, as our wrangler, that, you know, to how you would like us to go about, or anyone to go about, formulating a plan, contacting developers, any sort of progress on that, the future of that site, task force or something, to move that forward.
Let me give that some thought, and I think I can have some communications with council
Okay.
and bring you kind of up to speed in my thinking.
Okay, thank you. And also, just while I have the floor, and you're on that topic, I'd like to say thank you for sending out an all-council communication. I think that was a really great start, and I appreciate you taking the feedback.
Appreciate that. It's interesting. I went through my folder, and it turns out I've had 90 individual meetings with council members that were agenda oriented. So it was, I guess there's been some effort.
Oh, well, of course.
But I appreciate that that's also worked for you. So and I'll continue to do that. And my door continues to be open for individual conversations with council members. If we have no additional business or anything else for council consideration, we have no executive session that's required. Yes, Scott?
We did ask about an executive session for a follow-up for the union.
So I did not know that. I don't think I saw that.
We asked the last meeting.
That's right. And Dave was here.
To be able to do this, so Dave probably did
that's
ask,
right.
just to give us a quick update where we stand.
Are you calling for an executive session?
Sure.
Well, let's, before do we need Dave here for that?
No.
No, 'cause
All right,
it's
so
just-
as Scott's calling for an executive session, can I get a second?
I'll second you.
Who's that? All right,
And who do you
Elena
want?
seconded.
Oh.
Can I please get a vote?
Great. It's just a quick update.
Just
to
Greg,
do.
probably.
Cecilia,
Maybe
Councilmember Walsh Russo,
vote on executive session.
Sure. Councilmember LaPerge.
Yes.
Councilmember Carson,
Yes.
Councilmember Herring.
Yes.
Councilmember Forrester Rothbart,
Yes.
Councilmember Matheson.
Yes.
Okay.
Who
look at
do you
that.
want in there?
Great, you just give us a quick update.
We have Greg, and is there a reason to have anybody else? Jenny?
No, I was asking.
No,
Who's the
I
only
don't
other
know.
person
Greg,
I could
you
think?
think?
I don't know what the question is.
I don't think there's